Imagine feeling every ounce of pain that others experience, their anguish seeping into your very soul. You're drowning in a sea of emotions that aren't even yours. Empathy has taken over, and it's consuming you. But what if this profound connection is secretly sabotaging your mental health? In a world where trauma is shared with a single click, your empathy could be a double-edged sword, leading you straight into burnout and emotional ruin. Are you caught in the trap of over-empathizing, unknowingly destroying your own well-being? Prepare to uncover the shocking truth about how your greatest strength might be your biggest vulnerability, and learn how to reclaim control over your emotional landscape. Empathy is often celebrated as a profound human quality, a bridge that connects us deeply with others. However, there's a downside to this emotional sensitivity, especially in caring professions. For instance, a social worker who constantly deals with the trauma of others might find themselves drained and overwhelmed. Their high levels of empathy can lead to burnout, where their own mental well-being deteriorates as they take on the emotional burdens of those they help. It's vital to recognize when empathy shifts from being a strength to a source of personal exhaustion. Empathy doesn't only affect professionals, it can impact personal relationships, too. Imagine a friend who listens to everyone's problems but finds themselves feeling emotionally depleted. They might absorb others' negative emotions, leading to burnout in their own life. This constant emotional engagement can divert their focus from personal development and self-improvement, affecting their mental well-being and personal growth. Balancing empathy with self-care is crucial to avoid falling into this emotional trap. Managing the emotional demands of empathy requires proactive strategies. Implementing practices like digital detox, focusing on essentialism, and taking regular breaks can help maintain a healthy emotional balance. By doing so, individuals can protect their own well-being and ensure that empathy remains a positive force in their lives. Up next, we'll explore the different types of empathy and how they impact our interactions with others. Understanding others' emotions is crucial in building meaningful relationships, but not all empathy is created equal. Cognitive empathy, which involves understanding someone else's thoughts and perspectives, can enhance communication and problem solving. For example, a manager who understands their employee's point of view can better address concerns and foster a supportive work environment. This type of empathy helps in recognizing different viewpoints, making interactions more effective and less likely to lead to misunderstandings. On the other hand, affective empathy, or feeling others' emotions, can lead to emotional contagion, where one's mood mirrors that of another's. Imagine a close friend who's deeply upset. If you also start feeling their distress intensely, this can lead to emotional exhaustion. This kind of empathy, while connecting you emotionally to others, can sometimes overwhelm your own mental well-being, especially if you're consistently exposed to negative emotions. It's essential to balance this emotional connection to prevent personal burnout. Navigating these types of empathy effectively involves understanding when each is appropriate and how they impact your emotional health. While cognitive empathy can enhance interactions and foster understanding, effective empathy requires careful management to avoid emotional fatigue. Next, we will delve into how absorbing others' negative emotions can lead to burnout and what steps can be taken to protect your own emotional well-being. Absorbing others' negative emotions can have a significant impact on one's own mental state. When people are constantly exposed to distress or negativity from those around them, they may start to internalize these emotions. For instance, if you frequently interact with someone who is always anxious or upset, you might find yourself feeling similarly drained and anxious. This phenomenon, known as emotional contagion, can lead to burnout, as it is not just the empathy itself, but the continuous exposure to negative emotions that wears you down. Emotional contagion doesn't just affect individuals on a personal level. It can also manifest in professional environments. A healthcare worker who regularly deals with patients' pain and suffering might start experiencing emotional exhaustion, even if they are not directly involved in the trauma. This cumulative effect can diminish their own mental well-being and affect their job performance. Managing emotional contagion involves recognizing these patterns and implementing strategies to shield oneself from becoming overwhelmed. To counteract the effects of emotional contagion, proactive measures are essential. Techniques like practicing mindfulness, setting emotional boundaries, and engaging in regular self-care can help maintain emotional balance. By protecting oneself from excessive emotional absorption, individuals can continue to offer support without compromising their own well-being. Up next, we'll explore how professional burnout is particularly prevalent in fields with high emotional demands and what can be done to address it. Social workers and caregivers often experience high rates of burnout due to the nature of their roles. Constant exposure to others' emotional distress and trauma can be incredibly draining. For instance, a social worker who deals daily with clients facing severe life challenges may find their own energy and enthusiasm waning over time. The emotional toll of this continuous exposure can lead to exhaustion, reduced job satisfaction, and even feelings of inadequacy. It's crucial for those in such professions to recognize these signs and take steps to mitigate the risk of burnout. The impact of burnout is not just limited to job performance. It can also affect personal lives. A caregiver who spends long hours helping others might find themselves with little time or energy for their own self-care and personal relationships. This imbalance can lead to a cycle of stress and emotional depletion, impacting their overall quality of life. To address this, it's important to set clear boundaries between work and personal time, ensuring that there is space for relaxation and rejuvenation. Combating professional burnout involves implementing strategies that promote mental well-being and work-life balance. Practices like regular breaks, seeking supervision or support, and engaging in activities that replenish one's emotional reserves are vital. By adopting these strategies, professionals can better manage the demands of their roles and maintain their own mental health. Next, we'll look into how the internet can amplify trauma exposure and its effects on emotional well-being. The internet has become a powerful tool for sharing information, but it also has the potential to amplify vicarious trauma. With the constant flow of distressing news, personal stories of suffering, and graphic content, individuals can become overwhelmed by the emotional weight of what they see online. For example, frequent exposure to news about natural disasters or personal tragedies can lead to increased feelings of anxiety and helplessness. This exposure, while often unintentional, can deeply impact mental well-being over time. The way information is shared and consumed online can also exacerbate these effects. Social media platforms often highlight sensational content, which can intensify feelings of distress. Users might find themselves scrolling through distressing posts or videos, which not only affects their mood, but also contributes to a heightened sense of emotional fatigue. Recognizing the influence of these platforms on mental health is essential for managing exposure to trauma. To mitigate the impact of online trauma, individuals should practice digital detoxes and establish boundaries for their online engagement. Limiting time spent on social media, curating the content they consume, and taking regular breaks from screens can help protect mental health. By adopting these practices, one can reduce the risk of becoming overwhelmed by the emotional impact of online content. Up next, we will examine how high levels of empathy can make individuals more susceptible to manipulation and unfair treatment. Empathy and manipulation studies have shown that highly empathic individuals can be more susceptible to manipulation and unfair treatment. When someone is deeply in tune with others' emotions, they might find it harder to set boundaries or say no. For example, a person who empathizes strongly with a friend's financial struggles might feel compelled to lend money, even if it strains their own resources. This tendency can make them vulnerable to being taken advantage of, as their empathy can cloud their judgment and decision-making. This susceptibility to manipulation can extend beyond personal relationships into professional environments. In the workplace, employees who are highly empathic may struggle to advocate for themselves, especially if they sense their colleagues' or superiors' emotional needs. This can lead to an imbalance where their own needs and boundaries are overlooked, making them prone to unfair treatment. It's important for these individuals to be aware of how their empathy might be exploited and to develop strategies for self-protection. To navigate this vulnerability, it's crucial to balance empathy with assertiveness. Setting clear boundaries, practicing self-care, and learning to recognize manipulation tactics can help protect oneself. By doing so, empathic individuals can maintain their compassion while ensuring that their own needs are met. Next, we'll explore the concept of vicarious trauma and how constant exposure to others' trauma can affect one's own mental health. Constant exposure to someone else's trauma can lead to experiencing trauma symptoms oneself, a phenomenon known as vicarious trauma. For instance, a therapist who regularly listens to clients' distressing experiences may start to exhibit signs of trauma themselves, such as intrusive thoughts or emotional numbing. This can happen even if they haven't personally experienced the traumatic events. The continuous emotional strain from others' pain can impact their own mental well-being and overall life satisfaction. The effects of vicarious trauma are not limited to professionals. They can affect anyone who is frequently exposed to others' suffering. A person who watches distressing news stories regularly or engages deeply in support forums may start to feel overwhelmed by the collective pain they are exposed to. This prolonged exposure can erode their sense of safety and impact their emotional health, making it essential to manage and mitigate these effects actively. Addressing vicarious trauma involves developing coping strategies and seeking support when needed. Engaging in regular self-care, setting emotional boundaries, and seeking professional supervision or therapy can help manage the effects of vicarious trauma. By taking proactive steps, individuals can protect their own mental health while continuing to support others effectively. Next, we'll look at how high empathy can influence personal relationships and lead to vulnerability in interactions with others. High levels of empathy can significantly affect personal relationships, often in unexpected ways. For instance, an individual who feels deeply for their partner's emotions might become overly sensitive to their dissatisfaction, leading to increased relationship strain. This heightened emotional sensitivity can result in misunderstandings and conflict, as one partner's intense emotional responses may unintentionally overwhelm the other. Over time, this dynamic can create a cycle of emotional tension and vulnerability in the relationship. Empathy can also make individuals more susceptible to manipulation within relationships. If someone is highly empathic, they may struggle to assert their own needs or recognize when they are being taken advantage of. This can lead to an imbalance where their own emotional needs are overlooked in favor of accommodating their partner's desires or problems. It's essential for highly empathic individuals to maintain awareness of their own boundaries and emotional well-being to avoid this pitfall. To maintain healthy relationships while managing high empathy, it's crucial to balance emotional involvement with self-care. Setting clear boundaries, communicating openly, and ensuring that one's own emotional needs are addressed can help preserve the integrity of relationships. Next, we'll examine how higher serotonin levels, often boosted by medication, can influence empathy and susceptibility to unfair treatment. Higher serotonin levels, often enhanced by selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, can increase empathy. But this heightened sensitivity can also make individuals more vulnerable to unfair treatment. For instance, someone on SSRIs might experience a deeper emotional connection with others, leading to increased compassion. However, this same heightened empathy can also make them more susceptible to manipulation or emotional exploitation, as their strong emotional responses might cloud their judgment and reduce their ability to assert boundaries effectively. Increased empathy due to elevated serotonin can also impact how individuals handle interpersonal relationships. They might be more attuned to others' needs and emotions, which can be beneficial in fostering deep connections. Yet, this increased sensitivity can also lead to an imbalance where their own needs and well-being are neglected. This dynamic can make them more prone to feeling overwhelmed or being taken advantage of by those who recognize and exploit their empathetic nature. To manage the effects of increased empathy from higher serotonin levels, it's important to practice self-awareness and assertiveness. Regular self-reflection, setting personal boundaries, and seeking support when needed can help maintain a healthy balance between empathy and self-care. Next, we'll explore how engaging with negative characters in video games can alter empathy levels and moral judgments. Engaging with negative characters in video games can influence empathy levels and moral judgments in surprising ways. For example, players who frequently interact with antagonistic characters might begin to adopt a more cynical or detached outlook as they repeatedly encounter and manage negative behaviors. This repeated exposure can subtly shift their perspectives and responses to real-life situations, potentially diminishing their emotional sensitivity or altering their moral decision-making. Video games often present complex scenarios involving moral choices and consequences, which can impact how players perceive and react to similar situations in their daily lives. If a game constantly exposes players to deceitful or harmful behavior, it may desensitize them to such actions or influence them to adopt similar behaviors. This change in empathy and moral outlook can affect how they relate to others and handle interpersonal conflicts. To mitigate these effects, players should be mindful of the types of games they engage with and how these experiences might influence their real-world attitudes and behaviors. Balancing gaming with positive and empathetic interactions in real life can help maintain a healthy perspective and emotional balance. Next, we will examine how early high levels of empathy can affect romantic relationships and potentially lead to difficulties. Early high levels of empathy can significantly impact romantic relationships, often leading to unforeseen challenges. For instance, individuals with a deep sense of empathy might become overly sensitive to their partner's moods and needs, which can result in them taking on emotional burdens that aren't theirs to carry. This heightened sensitivity can cause them to misinterpret their partner's emotions, leading to unnecessary conflict and stress within the relationship. This deep empathy might also make individuals more susceptible to becoming emotionally overwhelmed by their partner's dissatisfaction or unhappiness. They might go to great lengths to address their partner's needs, sometimes at the expense of their own well-being. This dynamic can create an imbalance where one partner's emotional needs overshadow the others, leading to potential resentment and dissatisfaction over time. To navigate these challenges, it's essential for individuals with high empathy to establish and maintain healthy emotional boundaries. Open communication and mutual understanding in the relationship can help balance emotional needs and ensure that both partners feel supported. We'll explore how shifting from empathy to compassion can mitigate some of these negative effects while maintaining emotional support. Shifting from empathy to compassion can help mitigate the negative effects of feeling others' pain while still providing emotional support. Compassion involves showing kindness and understanding without absorbing or being overwhelmed by others' emotions. For example, instead of becoming distressed by a friend's problems, a compassionate person might offer support and practical help while maintaining emotional distance. This approach allows them to be supportive without being emotionally drained. In practice, transitioning to compassion can prevent emotional burnout and vicarious trauma. By focusing on how to assist others without becoming consumed by their pain, individuals can protect their own mental well-being while still being effective in their roles. This balance helps maintain their emotional health and reduces the risk of becoming overwhelmed by others' struggles. To develop compassion, individuals can practice mindfulness and self-care techniques that reinforce emotional resilience. By learning to respond with empathy, but also setting emotional boundaries, they can offer genuine support while preserving their own mental health. Next, we'll explore how this balance between empathy and compassion can be crucial in preventing burnout and maintaining overall well-being. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by others' emotions, as if their struggles were pulling you under? It's time to take charge of your emotional well-being and break free from the cycle of burnout. Reflect on how your empathy influences your life and relationships. Are you setting healthy boundaries, or are you losing yourself in others' pain? Embrace the power of compassion over empathy to protect your mental health while still supporting those around you. If you're ready to transform your emotional landscape and enhance your well-being, hit subscribe and activate notifications. Join our journey to discover more strategies for mastering your emotions and achieving personal success. Your path to a balanced, fulfilling life starts here.